We see a man at the beginning of the film who was actually a dealer. He was returning home after making a contract. But, on the way, he remembered one thing. And after standing next to a statue, he starts working. And then he saw a light coming from a house. It was magical light, not ordinary light. Seeing this light, the dealer panics and runs away. This light was emanating from the house of a professor named Joseph. He was a famous scientist. On completion of physics degree in 16 years. He believes that life after death is possible. Hence that if someone dies, they can come back to life, and he was researching it. The scene changes to reveal a museum. We meet an old, advertising giant egg. The egg eventually breaks and a dragon emerges. It was heinous and shattered the museum's glasses. And then he exits the building and walks straight to a bridge. They were going somewhere. The dragon throws a couple into the water. Later, we encounter a scientist's assistant. He appears to be rather innocent and naive. He now works in a garden and he likes a girl who is also his friend. Her name is Adele, whom he is writing a letter. The same girl Adele, the film's heroine, appears in the next scene. She was in the Egyptian desert this time. She came across a doctor's coffin. Meanwhile, two thieves arrive at the site. They were locals who had a map of the area. They know where this doctor's tomb is, where the coffin is. They arrive with Adele at the tomb and discover that the tomb's entrance is blocked by the wall. Adele opens the tomb's door with the help of the wall. There was plenty of gold as they entered the tomb. When thieves see so much gold, they become mad and begin to collect it. And Adele sees the doctor's coffin, which she had come to see. The robbers are punished for looting the wealth. They've been mysteriously died. And Adele asks her companions to open the coffin. As the coffin opens, it reveals a mummy. Adele is relieved to learn that he is this doctor after seeing this. Meanwhile, a professor who was a cop shows up. He asks a mature and excellent reporter like you, "What are you doing here?" after seeing her. She claims that this is a fantastic doctor. "I'll have to bring his mummy with me." He then asks, "Will you treat humanity from him?" after hearing this. She claims that it is not mankind, but rather my sister, who is ill. And no one knows how to cure her, and after hearing this, he asks her, "What are you talking about? Don't you realize it's death, and how could a mummy possibly treat it?" Adele sarcastically responds, "Yes, I know he's dead. So, how are you going to bring him back to life?" Professor Joseph, she claims, is a well-known physician. He'll make him alive. He possesses the capacity to bring any dead person back to life. I recognize him, but how can he bring this mummy back to life now? He is quite old and will die while attempting to resurrect this mummy. The professor instructs his cop to take her into custody. She's doing something that's against the law. Adele, on the other hand, was a brilliant and astute young lady. She goes to take money by water after deceiving them. The dealer was arrested and taken in front of the cops. The dealer we first saw at the start of the movie. He was asked about what had happened the previous night. "I've seen that dragon," he claims. He claims that he initially saw a light and then a dragon. However, the cops do not trust him since they believe he was intoxicated. And he could be spouting all of this because he's drunk. As a result, after arresting him, the police place him in custody. All of the police officers intend to keep this a secret afterward. This should not be disclosed because if the public learns about it, they will be terrified of the dragon. The next day, it was reported in the newspaper that something had been seen flying around the city. This is a dragon that has killed a large number of people. When the president learns of this, he directs an investigation into the matter. He delegated this authority to a higher officer. He tells him that he has 24 hours to look into this dragon. The museum where the egg was hatched is seen in the next scene. There's a scientist there, as well as an assistant who likes Adele. They begin to believe that a bird-like creature has flown away from this egg as they examine it. Meanwhile, the cops come and begin their investigate from them about this egg. Yes, they say, we're already looking into that. We didn't find much, though, and the cops left. Professor Joseph appears in the next scene. The dragon was gone to him. Actually, he brought him back to life, with their experiment. And we know a little about their relationship. Their spirits are linked, and the dragon was hungry. The professor feeds him flesh, and the police arrive there. Professor is also alerted to the coming of the police. And he keeps the dragon hidden in his home. Later, the police officer starts speaking with the professor. Meanwhile, an officer notices an egg and starts eating it. And the dragon sees the egg to the officer, he strikes him. The dragon has been spotted at his home by the police. As a result, he is arrested by the police. The scene turns to Adele, who has returned from Egypt. And has brought the doctor's coffin with her in which the mummy of the doctor was. She walks straight from the station to her residence. Adele's ailing sister is depicted here. She was in bad state, unable to speak or eat. She looked exactly like a real mummy. The reason for this was that a hairpin had become trapped in her head. Adele has treated her from different places. But no one could cure her, which is why she had brought this Dr. Mummy here. She intends to treat her sister from this doctor after bringing him back to life. Meanwhile, she examines the area beneath the door. The letter he'd written for her was being placed by the assistant. In the meantime, Adele opens the door and takes the letter. I know this is for me, and I'll read it. In the meantime, she reads the newspaper, in which it was written that Professor Joseph is death to sentence. After reading this, she becomes worried. And later, she asks the assistant where this punishment is given. He tells the in the nearby jail it is given, and after taking address of jail, she directly goes there and meets Professor Joseph as a lawyer. Professor tells that I'd make a dragon alive from an old egg. She tells that I've a dead mummy of a doctor. Would you be able to make him alive? Professor says that I don't think I could go out from the jail, because I've been sentenced to death. She vows that I'll take you out from this jail. Meanwhile, police comes to know about Adele. That in the costume of a lawyer there is Adele and puts her out. Adele again arrives to Professor Joseph after disguising as a lawyer. Once again police becomes aware and takes her out of jail. Despite of this, she didn't give up, she keeps of trying. But she fails every time. Later, police figure out the dragon with the help of a hunter, but they don't find the dragon. On the other side, Adele, after changing her appearance, goes into the jail. And eventually reaches out to the professor. However, she notices that instead of the professor, there was someone else. The man informs Adele that the professor has been transferred to another location. He'll be sentenced to death from there the next morning. And there's no way you can save him. Now, any powerful person can save him. She goes straight to the president because they have known one another for quite some time. She informs the president that she is here for a special reason. I'm confident you won't let me down. Professor Joseph should be released from prison, she requests. He says, I'll think about it after hearing this. In the meantime, the dragon appears and assaults the president. Following her battle with the dragon, Adele saves the president. No one can see the dragon there. Everyone believes Adele has made a personal assault on the president. She was arrested after allegedly assaulting the president. The scientist and the assistant are on the other side. They've really retained some eggs and flesh for the dragon. They keep his meal on a regular basis. And the dragon also visits for a feast. The dragon considers this location to be his home. The doctor appreciates the helper after seeing this. You did an excellent job. You've always been a genius. Adele, on the other hand, is forced to return home. She apologizes to her sister for not going according to plan. She goes to the restroom later. She reads the assistant's letter while taking a bath. He learns that the assistant knows the dragon's location. He and his partner go to the dragon. She does not grow terrified, but rather succeeds in befriending the dragon. She also saves Professor Joseph with the help of the dragon. Later, she visits the assistant, who is joined by the scientist. We learn that the scientist and the professor are friends. They are overjoyed to have met each other. Meanwhile, the hunter who has been assigned by the police arrives. He starts shooting the dragon, and the dragon screams in anguish. Professor Joseph was afflicted as well. As I already stated, their souls are linked. Adele takes Professor to her house before he dies. Professor Adele instructs her to keep all of the ancient things in a circle. Later, he begins the process of bringing this mummy to life. However, while bringing the mummy back to life, the professor passes away. Obviously, when the professor dies, so does the dragon. However, before passing away, the professor brought this mummy back to life. And the mummy, having been living, emerges. And it goes straight to Adele's sister. Later, he inquired if she was ill and what had happened to her. Adele claims that an incident occurred 5 years ago. We were playing tennis when a ball struck her in the head. A hairpin is inserted into her head. She has been in the same state as if she were dead since then. She doesn't eat, speak, or act in any way. She informs the mummy that the knowledge you have can cure her. He claims that the knowledge I possess will not be enough to cure her, because her situation is even worse. Adele surprisingly asks, "Aren't you a doctor?" after listening to this. He claims that he is neither a doctor nor a specialist. "I'm a regular surgeon," and tells that I'm not only one who was alive because of the professor's experiment. Rather, all of the dead bodies from 2 kilometers distant were alive. Adele, the mummy, and her sister visit the museum later. The chief doctor's coffins was buried there. This was the location where all of kings' and soldiers' mummies were kept. Adele proceeds to awaken the mummies one by one. Later, they open the king's coffin. When he wakes up, he remarks, "Woo, what a lovely sleep it was." He was overjoyed when he awoke. When he discovers that Adele has brought him back to life. For the treatment of her sister, as a result, he is enraged. Adele, on the other hand, asks him to bring her back to life. "Because I adore my little sister. I can't live without her, and I'm not willing to let her go." After hearing this, the king's mind shifts, and he becomes emotional. He requests that his doctor treat her. She begins to treat her in his own way. She eventually returns to her previous state of normalcy. The king and his guests later leave for a city tour. Adele becomes happy and hugs her, and she has tears of happiness in her eyes. On the other side, the mummies were enjoying and visiting the city. Later, we see the scene of the next morning. Adele starts a ship journey. With the start of her journey, this movie ends up.